Hey boys and girls, welcome back to the workshop. I've been out here in a while to do a video. Live in Southern California and my shop is basically partly outdoors. So we've had rain lately and it's been kind of cold and I'm a weather weenie. It's gotten to the point where if it's not between 72 and 76 degrees, I just can't function. So anyway, today's going to be a little different video than maybe what people would expect, because I'm going to be fixing an old Wilton vise that I broke. And let's face it, not very many people are going to have to fix a Wilton vise, so it doesn't apply directly. But what it does do is shows you that just because you misuse something and break it doesn't mean that you have to throw it away if you can't buy parts for it. A lot of times little things you can make do, and that's what we're going to do today, is make do on how to fix this vise. Well, you're probably wondering, first off, how in the heck do you bust a vise? Good question. My next door neighbor came over the other day and he's got an old horse trailer and he couldn't, the loading door on it had gotten bent so that it was really hard to latch, and so he was trying to pry it to bend it back, but he couldn't do it. He's a little smaller than me. Thought maybe I could. In my neighbor, in his defense, by the way, he probably wouldn't even have bothered to come ask me for help, but he's like almost 90 years old, and his wife said that if he hurt himself, as bad as busting a toenail, that insurance would probably total him. So he thought maybe I should give him a hand. That's not very supportive. So we got over there with the pry bar and couldn't really find a place to get a purchase on it so you could really get a good push. It kept popping loose. So I got the bright idea that I would go get my 5.5-inch vise and a 2x4, and we would use the 2x4 as a brace and then just crank the vise and bend the door back in shape. Seemed like a logical thing to do. Anyway, so we went over, did my plan, and when I got done, it worked, came out beautiful, but when I went to use the vise later, I realized it wouldn't, the jaws wouldn't pull apart anymore. So let me show you what happened and we'll explain it then. So there's the vise, and as you can see, you turn and nothing happens. Now going the other way, it will eventually drive it in, but it doesn't now. And it obviously, I mean, looking at it, looks like what it is. There's a groove here in the shaft that is supposed to be held to this so that it'll back the jaws out. And I thought maybe it'd be like a snap ring or something, but then if you look down here, there's this little area here and there's a screw hole. So it looks like there's a little piece that you would screw in here and then it would go and fit up in there. And sure enough, I went and looked online, and believe it or not, using the numbers on the side of the vise, I did find a schematic of it. The part's not available, but it's a pretty simple looking little part to do. So let's go over and I'll start making it and then we'll talk a little bit. So the part that I saw online in the drawing looks kind of like that. That's not a belly button, that's a screw hole or a sphincter. Here, let's make it a sphincter. There we go. Alright, so that's what we're going to be making, and we're going to make it. I got this chunk of metal here. I think this used to be part of the original rip fence for my table saw, but I got a new one and took this one off, and I kept it because it looked like good metal I could do something with. So anyway, let's get to work on it. So it's going to get noisy from here, so I'm going to do the discussion of what's going on while my stunt double, who may or may not be Jeff Bridges, finishes making the parts. By the way, I realize that you could use some more intricate tools like your plasma cutter or a CNC machine and make this part really nice. What I want this to be more about though is guys that have a limited shop and don't have a whole bunch of tools. I want to make it with as few tools as I can. So we got an angle grinder, a vise, a drill press, and my little handheld belt sander that I've got that you'll see in a bit that's clamped to a table. And I just want to show you, you don't have to have a whole bunch of stuff to make a simple little part like this. And then while we're doing this, I can talk about some other stuff. And I think I'll get into answering some imaginary viewer mail, which I haven't done in a long time. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get actual viewer mail. So anyway, what he's going to do first, you'll see Jeff is there cutting the piece of angle to basic size, and he's going to flip it over and cut the other piece off. In the meantime, here's the first letter. It comes from someone, I don't know where they get these names, but it says Jacked in Jamaica. It says, "Hey, dear Tim, you obviously aren't a guitar player, and you're only marginal as a singer. Why do you keep posting songs on this channel?" Well, Jack, if that's your real name, the reason's simple. I like to write songs, but recently I realized that a song you write is like a kernel of corn. It just drifts aimlessly and undigested through the great semicolon of life, unless somebody takes the time to experience, to chew it, to taste it. So thanks to anybody who helps digest my little kernels. And thanks also, Jack, for calling me marginal as a singer. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. One thing you do see here is what a pain it is when your vise doesn't open up by itself. It is worth fixing. Anyway, here's another imaginary letter from someone called Spam and Cheese. They don't get better, do they? Oh yeah, it looks like here Jeff is using a different grinding wheel so that he can make that circular arc part. He's going to rough it up with the grinder, and then he'll go over in a bit and clean it up there on the belt sander, and that'll make it nice and fit nice and snug around the shaft. I'm sure this is yet another case of misusing a tool, but it's part of the redneck arsenal. Anyway, here's how it goes. Dear Tim, I donate regularly to my local PBS station, and I feel guilty enjoying your quality programming on YouTube for free. How do I contribute to your channel? Oh, guys, don't click off on the video. This isn't going to be like the Pastoral Services Appeal sermon at church. Look, I hired a YouTube consultant. He told me 2 ways people support channels. First is by paying monthly through something called Patreon. I don't know why anybody would pay for this drivel. Hell, I'm surprised they don't charge me to post it. So that's a big fat no. The other is through a button called Buy Me a Coffee. Now, I don't drink that much coffee. And I haven't been to a coffee shop in years. So that's an equally rotund no. There is something you can do that I'm working on with YouTube to set up. You see, a while back, my wife's boss invited us to the Long Beach Symphony. As that sort of thing goes, it was pretty laid back. Otherwise, you'd probably tell by looking at me, I wouldn't have been there. I didn't have to dress up, and we were allowed to bring our own beverages. Now, I did want to look classy. I didn't want to look out of place. I didn't want to embarrass my wife in front of her boss. So I put on my church jeans. I stepped up at the store, and I bought a 6-pack of Budweiser Copper Lager. I even wore shoes. I also duct tape a stick to my Bushnells to make those little binoculars that rich ladies use on TV, and hold it up there. But the stick broke on the way, so I didn't get to use them. By the way, if Budweiser ever wants to bring Copper Lager back and they want a social media influencer spokesperson, call me. I at least probably won't taint the brand too bad. We knew going in that the blank for the metal was going to be a little bit too thick to fit properly, and the in the groove. So now we're taking over to the precision milling machine and cleaning it down to the precise thickness that it needs to be. It shouldn't take too long, just a couple of minutes. Anyway, the theme of this concert was heroes and villains. And I asked my wife's boss's wife if she thought that the Elmer Fudd hit, "Killed a Wabbit, Killed a Wabbit," would be under heroes or villains. It's a big question because on one hand, wabbits are cute and cuddly and have those big soft eyes. And on the other hand, they eat my garden vegetables, they gnaw on my garden hoses, they drive the dogs crazy, and they taste really, really good. By the way, look through my videos and you'll find some really good ways to cook things like rabbits, squirrels, and fish. Just a shameless plug, but what the hell, it's my channel, I'll plug if I want. Anyway, apparently that was the wrong question to ask, because as her husband later explained, "Kill the Wabbit" is opera, not symphony. Who knew there was a difference? As Jed Clampett once said, you can't even stomp roaches decent to either one of them. Anyway, since then my wife's been politely suggesting that I improve myself by becoming a little more cultured. I was trying to find a way to do that, and lo and behold, the other day I drove past a place called the Spearmint Rhino Gentlemen's Club. Where better to learn to be a more cultured gentleman than at a gentleman's club, right? Kind of like cotillion for old guys. So I called him up and I asked how it works and what it costs, and the guy said there's no set program, which doesn't seem like how you would do things with gentlemen. But he said there's no set program. And guys usually spend from $300 to $700 a night if they get some of the extras. I figure I'm trying to salvage a marriage here, so I need some extras. So I'm trying to get YouTube to put a button for me on called "Buy Me a Lap Dance." I'll let you know when it's up, and please remember, the marriage you save might be mine. My wife and I both thank you in advance. Well, look at that. Jeff's done installing the part, and hey, the vise works. Nice job, buddy. Jeff says thanks for watching, and don't be afraid to like, subscribe, and comment. I'm only a little over 999,000 shy of my goal of 1 million subscribers. So let's push it over the top, even if it means using fake profiles and Russian bots. As that great philosopher Red Green once said, we're all in this together. Keep your stick on the ice.